You are listening to the Self-Trust Solution Podcast with Dawn Leday, episode number 28. Welcome back. Today we're diving into navigating when everything seems to go wrong. This episode is great for anyone who finds themselves searching for answers to why things seem to go wrong and want to embrace a more empowering perspective. We're going to talk about our natural tendency when things go wrong, why the why isn't necessarily important. So what if you are responsible? How you can move forward. Is self-trust holding you back? Visit me at theselftrustcoach.com and take the free self-trust quiz. Find out where self-trust may be holding you back and receive instant results along with what you can do in response. Take the free self-trust quiz at theselftrustcoach.com. Now on to the episode. When everything seems to be going wrong, we're often tempted to look for a reason why. Not from a place of genuine curiosity that can actually create insight, but from a rush to fix it. We ask ourselves lots of questions and provide little, if no, answers. Not necessarily because we don't have answers, but because we don't take the time to form them, which unfortunately means these unanswered questions start begetting more unanswered questions. And that can result in feelings of stuck or overwhelm or panic. And this is true because while we're not intentionally answering these questions, subconsciously, we're answering them with the worst case scenario. And this is something I personally am very familiar with. And I see it so often in my clients, this swimming, this circling of questions without answers. And if you ask yourself to answer that, often the very first response is going to be a response that is, maybe you would consider it negative. Maybe it's something that you are believing not well of yourself, which goes to where often we start to look for what's to blame, who's to blame. And it doesn't support our inner reflection and learning. And truly, sometimes the why just isn't important. But when we're searching for this reason, this why, it separates us from deciding what next step is just best for us, right? Like sometimes we don't need to argue the facts or look for a reason why. It just is. And if we can just accept that, and that doesn't mean agreeing with it, it doesn't mean you approve of it. It just means knowing like, okay, this is the facts. What do I want to do next? Because sometimes things just don't go our way. And sometimes we have some responsibility in this, and sometimes we don't. But it doesn't serve us in any way to look for that responsibility if it isn't there. Just as it doesn't serve us in any way to belabor any responsibility we do have with blame and judgment and regret. So what can we do if everything seems to be going wrong? Answer the questions that surface, but with intention, deliberately. How do I want to answer this question? And maybe even ask to these questions something that's a little more empowering. So you may want to ask, why is this happening? Seems like a pretty typical question, right? I ask this all the time. Why is this happening? Answer it to your best ability. Sometimes that answer may be along the lines of because decisions were made that are outside of my control. Or maybe the answer is because there are some things I could have done differently. So what? If you are honest with that, like, here's some things I could have done differently, not with judgment, not with blame, and just like, okay, good to know, carrying that forward, then a great follow-up question you can ask yourself is, how can I make this work for me? Perhaps the situation makes room for something new and better. Perhaps you see an opportunity to develop or re-engage with a skill or a value or a trait. There are three questions that I like to ask myself in these moments. Once I have gotten all of those questions that just circle that I'm not deliberately answering, I kind of call them garbage questions because oftentimes they don't have great answers. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, there's the only answer to that is nothing. And my brain on default is not going to answer nothing. Right. So I want to ask myself some deliberate questions. So here are three that I ask that I invite you to incorporate when things just aren't going well or the way you want. And the first one is, what if this is exactly where I'm supposed to be? And that can be a hard one at first because we want to argue that this is not how things are supposed to go. But the truth is they just are. So spending that energy arguing is not giving you the power to move forward in the best way for you. So what if this is exactly where I'm supposed to be? How can I use this experience to serve myself and others better? Who do I want to be on the other side of this? The openness of these questions feels like hope and curiosity to me. And they always encourage me to grow closer to myself, who I want to be, and how I want to show up, even when things aren't going the way that I want them to, even when everything seems to go wrong. What will you take away from this episode? My goal is for you to generate a sense of hope and curiosity in the moments when everything seems to be going wrong. Maybe you write down all of the questions circling in your mind and answer them deliberately and intentionally. Decide what responsibility you have, if any, and own that decision. If you decide you have no responsibility to this situation that's going wrong, then keep reminding yourself that you have no responsibility. If you do own that decision, not to blame yourself or others, but to just learn. Ask yourself the three questions. What if this is exactly where I'm supposed to be? How can I use this experience to serve myself and others better? And who do I want to become on the other side of this? Spend some time answering and stepping into what's next. Thank you for joining me today on the Self-Trust Solution podcast. If you love this episode, don't forget to share it with your family and friends. And if you have any topics you'd like us to explore, email me at dawn@theselftrustcoach.com. We'd love to include it in future episodes. Join us next week for episode number 29. Thanks for tuning in and have a trust-filled week. Hey, if you're ready to build unshakable self-trust to achieve your goals and make the impact you're being called to make in a way that feels amazing, join me in Coach for Life. Coach for Life is the coaching program to build self-trust and achieve your goals. Join now at theselftrustcoach.com/Coach for Life program. That's Coach, the number 4, Life program. See you inside.